Good afternoon, YouTubers. I wrote this article today that I want to read to you. I think it's going to be the best way for me to get my point across because I am not that great of a speaker. It takes a while for me to kind of formulate and organize my thoughts, which is why I like to write articles. But in this day and age, it seems like people don't really like to read. So I decided I was going to try and read the article out to you guys. I'll probably make some mistakes, even just reading my own words, but I think it's something we all need to hear and all need to think about. Yeah, I titled it, Dear Trump Supporters. And it goes a little bit like this. If I hear one more Republican refer to the Democrats as communists or the radical left, I might have a stroke. So let's spend some time breaking things down. Democrats these days are neoliberals, or what I would consider conservative light. They do, to a certain extent, support environmental protection, the expansion of social programs, and immigration reform. However, they also love war, a bloated military, they support privatized healthcare, have no issues with lobbying, and are free market capitalists. Basically, Democrats today are old school Republicans. They're in no way, shape, or form leftists, and they sure as fuck are not radicals. Republicans these days have gone so far right that they are literally authoritarian. Their voter base either ignores this or just doesn't care because they are single issue voters. If you're someone who votes for a party or politician simply because they support one thing, then I'm sorry to say, you are an idiot who doesn't care about your country. Republicans get their base riled up on these single issues that in reality do absolutely nothing for the country and progress in the grand scheme of things. Restrictions on abortion and immigration, increased military spending, gun rights, as if people don't have enough of those already down here. Now, of course, it's totally okay to want some of these things, but what isn't okay is voting for someone just because you're anti-abortion. That just shows that you do not care about any positive progress as long as women aren't allowed to have an abortion. What is even worse is voting for someone just because you're so brainwashed that you think you're sticking it to the libs or whatever else these people say. And I got news for you. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about you or your well-being. I could spend hours going over the reasons why this is such an obvious fact, but then I am not in the mood to write a book. So I'm going to try and break it down into 3 points. And then I also want to talk about some real leftist ideologies. So, number 1, Donald Trump has no interest in the broader world. Now, I know you Americans love your rugged individualism, but a country's leader cannot act like the rest of the world doesn't matter, especially while he's also inflaming proxy wars. He is more of a disaster on foreign policy than George Bush. You should want a president that not only inspires unity and innovation inside their own borders, but outside of them as well. The USA would not survive without its imports. Whether you want to believe it or not, we have to work together globally. Number 2, he is a proto-fascist, and saying that is not hyperbolic. That doesn't mean Trump is the next Hitler, and let's be honest, he is too stupid to accomplish any of Hitler's goals. However, you simply cannot deny that he has taken his rhetoric directly from an authoritarian's handbook. He is attempting to lay the groundwork for authoritarian rule. Simply put, the main goal in fascism is to make the nation stronger, more powerful, larger, and more successful. They see national strength as the only thing that makes a nation good. So they use any means necessary to achieve that goal. I actually wrote an article about this a year ago, and it's scary to see how right I was. And I encourage you guys to actually go read that article as well, because it's not in any way only about Trump. It's about the global rise of fascism and white supremacy, because this definitely isn't just an American issue right now. So fascism is a far-right ideology that deals in ultra-nationalism and forces suppression of opposition. They use strategies like the mythic past, aka Make America Great Again, or anti-intellectualism, aka the education cartel, or constantly make yourself out to be a victim, aka nobody has been treated worse than me. Authoritarians also use the guise of being the ones to bring true law and order. Sound familiar? Number 3. The majority of Trump administration's accomplishments have been him undoing good policies and getting rid of important regulation. The New York Times has identified 53 separate rules that have completed the rollback process and 32 more that are still in the works. Some of these things include limiting wildlife protection, removing the emission rules for power plants and vehicles, weakened protections for more than half the nation's wetlands, and even canceled a requirement for oil and gas companies to report methane emissions. If you want a detailed breakdown of all the horrible things that this administration has done, I highly recommend this detailed article. I have it linked there. It's a really good Vox article. As far as what he ran on, he didn't build a wall. He did not create the best healthcare plan the world has ever seen. The infrastructure is still crumbling, and the USA still sucks ass. I want to move on from this. I have another article on here about Trump if you're interested, as well as the article I linked earlier about fascism. All right, so let's talk about socialism and other leftist politics. This is going to be severely dumbed down because there are a million different variations of political and economic ideologies. It's almost impossible to define socialism simply. Basically, it's a blend of political, social, and economic philosophy. It encompasses a range of different systems characterized by social ownership of means of production and workers' self-management of enterprises. Karl Marx observed that human societies develop through class conflict. In capitalism, this manifests itself in the conflict between the ruling class, aka the 1%, who control the means of production, while the working class, aka us poor bitches, have to sell our labor power in return for wages to buy things that don't matter. Capitalism produces internal tensions that would lead to its self-destruction, and Marx believed it should be replaced by socialism. Communism takes that a step further and socializes both production and consumption instead of just the means of production. Then there's anarchism, which is extremely far left. Basically, they reject all forms of hierarchy. And then there's anarcho-capitalism and anarcho-communism and syndicalism. I could go on. There's so many places you can stand on the political spectrum, which is why it drives me absolutely insane how little people understand about political science. In the States, if you aren't a Republican, you're considered a fucking radical leftist now. Liberals aren't even on the left historically. Bernie Sanders would probably be considered someone right-leaning in many parts of Europe. The USA is the only industrialized nation that makes healthcare into a partisan issue. Actually, I take that back. Because lately, I have been seeing more and more Canadians and Europeans start to parrot the bullshit that comes out of the mouths of Republicans. It's insane to me how misinformation spreads. Right here are some pretty cool graphics that I found of like old school American propaganda against like socialism and communism. And this one in the middle here, the Captain America, that's literally a Captain America comic book that was printed in 1954. And at the top there, I don't know if you can see, it says Captain American, Commie Smasher. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how much propaganda there is out there about everything. Years of propaganda have brainwashed the masses to scream socialism and communism or anything that they don't agree with. So because of the years and intensity of this type of propaganda, a lot of people can't wrap their heads around the possibility that socialism, or even a more blended system like democratic socialism, would be a lot better than what we currently have in place. A capitalist system where the government works for the corporations and not for the people. Freedom isn't really free if you don't have access to it. You might have all the materialistic bullshit you can imagine in your country, even the best healthcare. But does any of that actually matter if no one can afford it? That's ultimately why I wanted to write this article and make the video. Because all I see around me are people allowing themselves to be divided, push themselves further apart and further to the right. Why would you want that? Why would you not want to progress? Why do the idea of taxes and immigrants bother you more than the fact that we are destroying the planet that keeps us alive? Why are you so fucking selfish that you can't put a mask on your face? Why are you so fucking brainwashed that you have to turn wearing a mask into a political issue. A conspiracy. What is happening to human beings? I don't know. Have we always been this stupid? Or is it just social media showing us who we really are? Or is it both? People are stupid and easily manipulated. Then Facebook and the meme was created and now the world has gone fucking insane. I just don't know anymore. In 2020, with climate change, which will inevitably lead to mass immigration, and automation, which will inevitably lead to mass unemployment, we should be reimagining our society, because capitalism and the free market are not going to solve all of the problems that we face in the near future. And that's that. That's my article. Since you probably won't go read the articles I told you to go read, I'll read a little bit of this to you. I learned in How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley that some of these strategies include the mythic past, propaganda, anti-intellectualism, unreality, hierarchy, victimhood, law and order, sexual anxiety, appeals to the heartland, and dismantling of public welfare and unity. All of these tactics should seem uncomfortably familiar with you. When politics dehumanize and exclude specific groups, it limits our capacity for empathy. That is a slippery slope that can and has led to inhumane treatment, repression of freedom, and even mass extermination. Division is dangerous. When a country's population is separated into an us versus them mentality, it is a lot easier to convince the masses to support their vision. They rewrite a history we already know and promote anti-intellectualism by attacking and devaluing educational systems and anyone who might challenge their view. It's actually quite easy to create this unreality, a new world where fake news and wild conspiracies replace reasoned debate. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. So that was from an article I wrote over a year ago now. And it's crazy to me that now there's race riots going on, you know. This article I wrote breaks down the riots. It talks about systemic racism in America. It talks about the police industrial complex, which I think a lot of people don't really understand. I really would love for you guys to just go into my website's blog and read some of the articles that I put together. I got to go to some of these protests, and it was beautiful to see people come together and unify in the way that they did, and it gave me a little bit of hope for a while there, which I think is completely gone all over again, because how do you reason with someone who didn't use reason to get themselves into the opinion that they're at? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, how can you change the opinion of someone who isn't using logic to form it? I just don't know. I'm so confused on how we're going to be able to get past this, because it seems like it's getting worse. And with the election coming up, and honestly, I won't be surprised if Trump wins again, for many reasons. The biggest one being how the voting system works in the States is completely bonkers, in my opinion. The Electoral College is just totally unnecessary at this point, and it might have made sense back when America was founded, but it's 2020 now, and it's a completely different world. The founding fathers, they could never have imagined where we would have evolved to as a society. So clinging on to those rules and the Constitution that they made back then, it just seems so silly. Like, we've learned so much since then. I just don't know, guys. I'm sure this pissed a lot of people off, but I just think, like, actually, let me just conclude this video by saying I'm not a Democrat. I don't like Joe Biden. He's a conservative. He's not for police reform. He's not for universal health care. He's another old white dude that shouldn't be in office. However, I do think he would be a bit better than Trump. I think it's absolutely insane to vote for Trump again. Really, I just wish Bernie Sanders got the primary. It's so sad. It's so sad that Bernie is considered a radical. What he wants to do, what he wanted to do was amazing. He wanted to get corrupt money out of politics. He wants people to have health care. He wants college to be affordable, maybe even free. That's not crazy. Those aren't radical policies. Even right-wingers in other parts of the world accept those policies. I really just wish that people on the right in the States would really, just look at the rest of the world. And look at the left-right political spectrum. Learn a little bit about political science. It's so much more complex than, right, left, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. There's so much more to it than that. You could have blended systems. I just don't understand. I don't understand why people are so resistant to change. Because, imagine if we hadn't changed at all since the inception of our countries. There would still be slavery. There would still be segregation. Women still wouldn't be able to vote. Change is good. Fighting for things, for progress, it's a good thing. I really don't understand why people view the world the way that they view the world. It makes me really sad. And I hope maybe this video and some of the things that I said got you thinking. And go read the articles, because read them, reread them, look for more information on it. Look at the links that I post to, where I got my sources. Look at it all. Absorb it all. I always watch news from the other side. It's unbearable, but I try to keep myself out of an echo chamber. It's good. It's good, people. Open your minds. Talk to each other. Stop screaming at each other. And please, for the love of God, don't vote for Trump. He sucks. He doesn't care about you. He's a dumb, rich dude that somehow kept failing upwards. Love you guys. Have a good day.